Hey guys, it's Miharu. While searching for content for a possible Halloween video, which never happened, so sorry about that, I happened upon a Reddit thread titled, "What misconceptions did you have about the Spyro games as a child?" And under it, I found this post. I couldn't figure out how to get the orb past the door in Summer Forest. A kid at school told me the door will open if I beat Gulp 26 times, so I sat there and fought him over and over. Now, let's take a trip to the past. Back when the internet was young and Peekaboo was the official name for Meryl as far as we knew. We all knew kids like this, notorious for telling ridiculous lies about video games in order to make themselves look cool. And this video is dedicated to all those nonsensical playground rumors. My friends told me the real boss in Toasty was hidden and you had to fly around the edge of the map to get it. I died about 10 times trying before I gave up. Older family members told me that you could glide to the mountains where the sunset is in Toasty. I tried for years. I remember as a kid, a friend told me it was possible to get out of Sunnyville skate park area if you somehow got high enough to get out of bounds on the skateboard. And then he also added that you could visit the artisan's homeworld from doing so. He was full of shit clearly, but as a kid I was dumb enough to try it out. I remember that people talked about the tall island in Midnight Mountain. The one that stuck with me was that you had to get 1,000,000 points when facing Hunter and Enchanted Towers, and get a perfect score in the Eddie boxing. Someone from my primary school told me I could play as Ripto in Spyro 2 if I beat the game 100% and did all the skill points. Now I know that that person must have had a really good dream, or have mistaken someone else playing as Spyro with the Super Flame, or lied. I remember some kids telling me you could play as Ripto if you beat the game completely. I'm sure it goes without saying, upon beating the game as a kid, I was disappointed. I was very disappointed. Now there aren't as many rumors about Spyro as there were with something like Pokemon, but before I end it, I have one of my own. Back when I discovered the New Game Plus mode in Spyro 2, aka starting a new game with permanent Super Flame, I was itching to try it out, but was nervous because I was unsure if it would actually work. So I talked to a kid who had done it before, and he told me that if I got the power up, saved my game, put my disc in the microwave for 10 seconds, and then started a new file, it would work. It was the craziest thing I'd ever heard, and luckily I was smart enough not to test it. Hey guys, it's Miharu, and welcome to my Valentine's Day special. I've wanted to make a video about shipping in Spyro for a while now, but I just didn't know how to go about it. Then it hit me. Since I've been making those character analyses, comparing the originals to their reignited counterparts, why don't I just follow the same format? How has shipping changed in Reignited? For this video, I'll only be looking at the two most popular pairings in the original trilogy, Hunter and Bianca, and Spyro and Allura. Since the former is canon, I'll start with that. Now, since these are short games by today's standards with no real story or time to flesh out the characters to the fullest, pairings felt, in a sense, rushed. But that doesn't mean they weren't done well, despite there being little to work with. One of the major reasons Hunter and Bianca work so well is because they were such an unlikely pair, and I don't just mean the interspecies thing. She was the mysterious and misguided antagonist, and he was the funny sidekick who helped bring out her soft side in his own weirdly charming way. It's like Roger and Jessica Rabbit. He makes her laugh. I'm a sucker for those kind of ships, honestly, and that's what makes them great. Hunter saw right through that mean act of hers, never thought for a second that she was the villain she was making herself out to be. I guess that's his naively optimistic nature shining through, but that's probably why she fell for him. Their personalities contrasted with one another, and as we all know, opposites attract. As for Reignited, the progression of their relationship didn't feel as natural, not only due to it being a rushed recreation, but also because of the reduced quality of Bianca's character. She wasn't just cute when angry, she was always cute. There was no vulnerable side for Hunter to bring out because she never covered it up. What was originally a more than meets the eye situation was simplified to a basic boy likes girl scenario, though this scene is way more adorable in the remake. Now let's take a look at Spyro and Allura. While I personally have never been a fan of this couple, I do understand why people like it. Allura has a crush on Spyro, and he's completely oblivious, as apparent by this page in the Spyro 2 epilogue. It's cute, but very subtle in the original. In fact, it was so subtle that it went over my head as a kid, which explains why I feel the way I do about the ship today. Compare that with Reignited, in which her feelings toward him are made almost too obvious, to the point where she can be seen as just a generic love interest. I once described Elora as the Tawna of the Spyro series, in the sense that she's well remembered from one game, and aside from a small cameo in Year of the Dragon, is never heard from again. She wasn't Spyro's girlfriend, but may as well have been. Imagine if she had become a classic series mainstay like Bianca. I would have eventually warmed up to her and Spyro as a couple if their relationship had been explored more, but it is what it is. And now Reignited comes along with her overplayed infatuation, and while I think it's nice that they're trying to expand on it a little, it's almost coming off as forced. The problem is there's a lack of balance. In the original, it was unclear, but could have been good had something else come from it, which never happened. In the remake, it's shown from the beginning, making it appear too fast, so there's almost no need for natural progression. It's all up in the air. Hey guys, it's Miharu. The topic of Elora versus Bianca has long been a hot debate amongst the Spyro community. Okay, maybe it hasn't, but recently some comments, or rather complaints, have been brought to my attention. Despite Elora being the first main female character introduced to the series, and having a very sizable fanbase, her importance came to an abrupt halt after her debut appearance, and aside from a small cameo at the end of Year of the Dragon, she was never heard from again. Bianca, on the other hand, though not playing any major roles outside her initial debut, continued to appear in multiple games afterward, going on to become more or less the token female of the franchise up until Cinder. So, why was this the case? Well, from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, the answer is very simple. Elora's main purpose was to be a story guide, another tutorial character which Hunter pretty much had under control. As such, there was no reason to bring her back for the next game. From what I can gather, the cameo was done specifically because Oliver Wade, a character designer for Insomniac at the time, liked her. Other sources state that she was planned to return in Enter the Dragonfly as well as Attack of the Rhinox, in which she was supposed to be playable, but these ideas were scrapped early in development. In Bianca's case, the reason why she returned for Enter the Dragonfly was because the developers wanted it to be a direct sequel to Year of the Dragon, continuing exactly from where it left off, hence why the game begins with a celebration of the baby dragons receiving their dragonflies. Still doesn't quite explain why Ripto came back, but that's what happened there. That said, you have to look at the situation from an in-universe perspective as well. I personally always saw Elora as the acting leader of Avalar. She has a duty to protect her home and keep the peace. As much as she would love to go on adventures with Spyro, I'm sure, it's just not in her nature to abandon those responsibilities. Then you have Bianca, who is still finding herself by learning to become a better sorceress and assisting Spyro with her magic when she can. Due to her role in the story, she was a much better fit for a long-term traveling companion, also taking into account her relationship with Hunter, which gave her even more of a reason to stay. So, though it may appear that Elora got the short end of the stick on the surface, she did in fact fulfill her original intended purpose. And that's not to say we'll never see her again. It's entirely possible for her to return for the new continuity, maybe as a playable character with an arc of her own. She could actually formally meet the rabbit who supposedly stole her spotlight. Perhaps they could even expand on her relationship with Spyro, for those of you who ship that. Just look at how well Tawna from Crash Bandicoot was updated, going from a simple damsel in distress in the original game to a take-charge action girl in Nitro Field. And this was done for a spin-off game of all things, so who knows what the future holds for her. And that's what we have to remember for Elora. There's always a chance, no matter how things may seem, for fan favorites to come back better than ever. Hey guys, it's Miharu. When we were kids, there was nothing quite like the feeling of stopping by a fast food restaurant for lunch. Maybe you just liked the atmosphere. Maybe you liked playing on those N64 or GameCube kiosks if your McDonald's was lucky enough to have them. Or maybe you just didn't have food at home. No matter the reason, one thing's for sure, when you got a kid's meal, you would reach into the bag or box and pull out the most important thing inside, the toy. Fast food promotions for movies or video games have been a thing for decades, and Spyro is no exception. Yes, from the early to late 2000s, the Purple Dragon, along with Crash Bandicoot, got his fair share of kids' meal toys. So today, I bring you the history of these specific promotions. Since I know it's going to be brought up in the comments, I couldn't start the list without mentioning the 1999 Pizza Hut demo disc, which included 2 levels from the then upcoming Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. For some of you, this was your first experience with Spyro 2. It may have even been your first experience with the series in general. As such, I felt it was important to note. Now, onto the toys. In 2001, we got 3 from Taco Bell. This included a small Spyro plush, a glow-in-the-dark spark spinner, and a Spyro string crawler with a green gem attached. I should say this right now, of all the toys I'll be mentioning in this video, the crawler was the only one I ever owned, and unfortunately I seem to have lost it. The next promotion in 2001 for Carl's Jr. and Hardee's was mostly focused on Crash, but still gave us one toy in the form of a Spyro figure with a light-up Sparks. Skipping ahead to 2002, we have 4 more from Taco Bell, this time a Super Loop Spyro, a Glider, a Sparker, and a Sparks plush. Now here's one I'm sure most of you will remember. In 2005, with the release of A Hero's Tale, McDonald's gave us 4 LCD minigames, much like the Sonic ones from a year prior, a couple of which I actually did own. From what I've heard, the objective of these games included things like guiding Spyro through a castle collecting gems, a boss fight against Red, and a flight level. In 2007, Wendy's promoted the second game in the Legend trilogy, The Eternal Night, with a Sparks Flyer, Flapping Spyro, a keychain that came in 3 variants, checkers, and a maze game. And yes, from 2013 to 2018, McDonald's and even Burger King gave out Skylanders toys with their meals. That's about it. However, Magic Crafters HQ recently uncovered these Adopt a Dragon concepts from what would have been yet another McDonald's promotion featuring Spyro and his recolored friends. Unfortunately, no other information about what exactly this was or the year it was planned has ever surfaced. Hey guys, it's Miharu. So after a lot of hassle, I was finally able to get EPSXC up and running, and now I'm able to play the original Spyro trilogy on stream for you guys. And by doing that, I was also able to play some alternate versions of the first game I've been wanting to try, those being the Japanese version, which I'm pretty sure you've all heard about by now, and the prototype build that was made public by HWD405 over on his channel. As this information has been out there for several months now, I'm sure most of what I'm about to say is common knowledge to a good chunk of the community. However, I thought it would be fun to go over some of the differences found in this early version of the game, and discuss why they may have been changed. So here's the top 5 most interesting differences from the June 15th, 1998 prototype of Spyro the Dragon. Number 5. The Waterfall Stones and Artisans. There's not much to this one. Instead of being able to jump on the stones in any order, it used to be that you'd have to step on the right stone first, and go around in a sort of clockwise pattern. Each one would light up accordingly to let you know if you were doing it correctly. I suppose this was changed to make it feel like more of a secret, almost as if you had to talk to Lucas first before even attempting to open Sunny Flight, making it really the only instance of backtracking you'll find in this game. Number 4. Metalhead's Power Poles. Everyone knows how this fight goes. When the poles turn green, attack them to defeat Metalhead. However, originally the power poles came in 2 different types. There were the standard ones, which cycled through yellow and blue, yellow being the safe to attack color instead of green, and red ones that only Metalhead himself could destroy. While I understand the decision to change the colors, this is honestly a mechanic I wish would have been kept. I don't know about you, but whenever I would fight this boss, and even to this day, I always have him destroy his own power supply. It's more fun that way, makes you feel like you've outsmarted him. Though it's likely this was done to avoid confusion and make things easier. Number 3. The Turtles in Dark Passage. Instead of shooting fireballs, the armored turtles from Dark Passage were originally going to spit flaming bat creatures at you. Oh, and in large form, they release these creatures from their stomach instead of their mouth. Imagine being a kid and seeing that. Or even better, take a moment to picture how that might have looked in Reignited. I could see people having trouble with this, as the attack seems to take less time to charge, and looks incredibly difficult to avoid what with the bats not flying in a straight line, and having quite a bit of range. Number 2. Blowhard's Wizard Hats. Blowhard is probably the most overlooked boss in the game, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that his level is kind of bland and forgettable. It didn't have any dogs that plagued people's nightmares or enemies that kamikaze themselves off a cliff, just your standard wizards and druids. But though there may have not been any unique enemies, this level used to have a unique gimmick. Each baddie would wear a hat that made them impervious to your attacks, so you'd first have to flame the hat off their head before attacking them directly. While this is a neat idea, and certainly would have made Blowhard's level more memorable, it is a bit tedious to have to do this for every single enemy you come across. In at number 1, we have the Shrink Fairies. These were a special type of fairy that would only appear in high caves. Whereas in the final version we got the well-known Super Flame Fairy, the prototype had a different method of exterminating those creepy metal-back spiders. Instead of getting a new power-up with which to defeat them, the fairies would instead use their magic to shrink the bugs down to a smaller size which you could easily charge. I assume this was changed to introduce the concept of the Super Flame early on, and maybe because the mechanic itself was a little buggy, pardon the pun. It also feels a lot more satisfying to kill otherwise invincible enemies by means of a power-up. Hey guys, it's Miharu. Let's talk a bit about gems in the Spyro universe. What do we know about them? Well, we all know they're used as currency to pay that fat bear in moneybags and count towards completion of the game, but how about beyond that? Did you ever wonder why they're there or where they came from? That's what I'm here to discuss. Throughout history, dragons have always been associated with treasure. They steal it, hoard it, and guard it from outsiders. And the dragons of the Dragon Realms are no different when it comes to protecting theirs. Many fans have often theorized that these gems don't belong to them and never have, due to the aforementioned stealing. Does the treasure in Nasty's loot actually belong to Nasty Nor, or did he just take it and was planning to turn more of it into his minions? Guess we'll never know exactly who had it first. It's actually quite possible that, since there are gems lying around in the Forgotten Worlds as well, the residents of those lands were the original owners, and all the gems in the Dragon Realms were just stolen from them. Though seeing as the dragons were banished so suddenly, I don't see how they would have had time to gather them all. And then you have the gems in Avalar, presumably mined by the gem cutters, as their name implies, to be used for decoration, energy boosting like the Super Portal's power crystal, and most notably, money. A Hero's Tale introduced dark gems, which Red used to poison the land and create hazards, and light gems, which grant Spyro new abilities. So, what use do the dragons have for the gems they've collected? Well, in the Legend series, they have what are known as spirit gems, which essentially serve as the life force of dragonkind, replenishing health and mana. Of course, the original trilogy doesn't use this mechanic, and as far as we know, the dragons are their own source of magic, judging by what Bianca said. However, in Reignited we can clearly see some of the dragons wearing what appear to be gems, or carrying bottles of mysterious brightly colored liquid. Based on this, I theorize they could be using their treasure to boost their magic, or melting it down to create potions. Even though gems may not be magical on their own, they can still be utilized to the dragon's advantage. Whatever properties they may hold, there's definitely more to them than just a shiny outward appearance. Hey guys, it's Miharu. I know it's kind of been a thing on my channel to talk about how ridiculous Spyro 2 is, but the August 11th prototype that was just recently released features differences that actually make things more clear. Did you know that the game was originally going to have Elora narrating each level intro and outro? She was supposed to give Spyro a little backstory about what was happening all over Avalar, and some of the things she says reveal quite a bit. Let's have a listen.
Welcome to Hurricane, Spyro. This stormy place is the home of the electral scientists who provide Avalar with much of its power. Unfortunately, that bully Ripto has sent gear grinders to steal the energy, and they've activated electric barriers to keep the electrals apart. If you can help the electrals, they might do something special for you.
Well, there it is. There's our proof that Ripto actually did have something to do with the enemies running around and he wasn't just sitting on his ass in the castles doing nothing.
Sunny Beach used to be a paradise. At least before Ripto sent water workers to bring back turtles for his favorite meal, turtle shell souffle. But Ripto sent water workers who pumped the caves dry and built factories on top of the coral. Recently, Ripto sent ice wizards to Crystal Glacier to kidnap Shaman Tut.
I can understand there were probably a few different reasons they might have had to cut this narration, but in doing so they made Ripto seem like the laziest villain ever.
It's really weird. They got along fine until Ripto arrived. I think he's just trying to stir things up so he can take over Avalar more easily.
And listen to that, he was also the one who turned the Breeze Builders and the Landblubbers against each other. Spyro wasn't playing both sides in a war, he was trying to make peace again. By killing dudes? Well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
This is Scorch, the hottest place in Avalar. The soldiers in Scorch are at war with the hippos from Shady Oasis. The hippos have sent 2 secret agents to invade the soldiers' headquarters.
Whoa. Excuse me? All this time we thought it was Breeze Harbor and Zephyr, but it was Scorch and Shady Oasis that were actually at war? And the hippos were the ones who sent Handel and Greta? Also, notice she didn't say anything about Ripto here. This conflict is completely on them.
Hey, Spyro, you did it! Since a lot of my cousins live in Fracture Hills, I'm particularly happy that you helped them out.
And confirmation that the Fracture Hills fawns are indeed Elora's cousins, meaning that she herself may have come from there. That's pretty much all I wanted to discuss, but it's interesting stuff, right? With these explanations, things actually sorta make sense. Again, I understand there may have been a number of reasons why it was ultimately scrapped, but it's kinda upsetting to learn that so many confusing things could have been cleared up. Hey guys, it's Miharu. Let's discuss more prototype stuff. Last time I talked about Alora's cut level intros and outros from Spyro 2, and today I'm moving on to Spyro 3 because oh boy are there some major finds here, some of which we previously thought were lost to time. So let's look at 5 of the biggest discoveries from the April 25th prototype build of Year of the Dragon. Again, a big thanks to HWD405 for uploading all this footage. First up, we have something I'm sure you've all seen before. This image, depicting the fabled Sunnyvilla fountain, has been floating around the internet for quite some time now, yet it hadn't been seen in any version of the game. Well, look no further because the prototype has it in all its watery glory. Still no sign of the balconies as seen here, but a great find nonetheless. Next is the Thief Chase segment in Molten Crater. Originally, they weren't the same old egg thieves from Spyro 1, but rather the sorceress's own brand of Rhinoc thieves, and I gotta say, they're pretty cute. Unfortunately, they were made nearly impossible to catch, and as a result, some hacking needs to be done in order to see their defeat animation. Now here we have my personal favorite. Just like with the fountain, you may have seen this image pop up a few times, showing that there was meant to be some kind of tiger enemy in Bamboo Terrace. And what do you know, this prototype has them too. It was honestly surreal getting to see them in action like this, and what's better, they use completely original sound effects that I believe aren't replicated for any other enemy. As Brian Hastings said, they were ultimately cut due to their weird turning animation, but they're still very cool. Okay, this is what you came here to see. It's on the thumbnail, so of course I'm gonna talk about it. The Spike boss fight was going to be harder. That's right, the most notorious boss in the original game had a scrapped third phase with him electrifying the arena and a mini volcano shooting rocks everywhere. Fantastic. This is one piece of content I'm glad they removed. And lastly, we have something I stumbled on completely by accident. If you go into Bentley's boxing mission in Frozen Altars, or Astarctica as it's called here, and say no to Bartholomew, he'll mention that the Yeti's really mad after what Spyro did to him back in Avalar. Now, although this doesn't really make any sense considering Bartholomew probably wouldn't know anything about Avalar, it is a nice reference to Spyro 2, and it proves the Yeti is in fact the same one from Colossus. Hey guys, it's Miharu, and I love obscure Spyro content. Whether it be unreleased games to fast food promotions, chances are you'll come across something interesting about the Purple Dragon's early life as a PlayStation mascot. And our most recent discovery comes in the form of this post by Danny, aka Beetlebird, on Twitter. What you see here is a page from the May 1999 issue of Disney Adventures magazine, detailing Spyro's hidden cave, which is essentially Spyro's home. This was part of the magazine's Secret Lives of Video Game Stars section, which claimed to have info about never-before-told stories, deep secrets, and sneaky game-playing tips. Now, let me first point out the obvious. It's clear these were done purely for fun. It's highly unlikely Insomniac themselves had anything to do with what is shown here, but it is a cool piece of lore nonetheless. So let's take a look at what's inside Spyro's hidden cave. First, we have the kitchen, with frozen lamb chops in the freezer and hickory-smoked Nork jerky on the shelf. So, does that mean Spyro eats Norks? Is that what he does after flaming them? Then we have a toasty warm sheepskin jacket, which is literally just Leon's jacket from Resident Evil 4. I never knew I wanted Spyro wearing Leon's jacket, but artists, please, get on that. Now, here's the most interesting thing in here. A photo of a favorite but extinct relative. And if you look closer, there are letters on the frame, which seem to spell out Dad. So, according to this, Spyro's father was a teal-colored dragon, and most likely an artisan. He is also, unfortunately, no longer with us. Moving on, we have Fire Breath Freshener, a trophy for winning the Super Dash Relay at the 3rd Annual Dragon Games, a flame-resistant video game system with a very weird-looking controller with buttons on the grips, Super Shine Horn Polish, and the latest CD by the Dragon Lords? Are you telling me the Spyro universe has its own band? Extra butterflies for sparks are here in the corner, and the last thing is Nasty North's helmet to hold loose change. The strange thing is, these aren't gems, they're regular coins, which gets me thinking, is it possible that, since gems aren't used for anything in the first game, the currency in the Dragon Realms is actually coins? Is there a dragon version of moneybags somewhere in this world? There's so much to question and think about from this image alone, and it's a perfect example of why I love this old stuff from the late 90s and early 2000s. Hey guys, it's Miharu. I'm sure by now we're all aware of things that could have been when it comes to Spyro. He could have been green, he might have been called Pete at one time, and he wasn't always the go-getter adolescent dragon we know him as. In fact, the whole game could have been immensely different, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Recently, the master of Spyro prototype content himself, HWD405, shared a bunch of concept art and a pitch document related to the early development of the first game, courtesy of former Insomniac artist Craig Stitt, and it's quite interesting to say the least. First, I want to take a look at the original pitch, which went by the working title Dragonspan. Now, there's a lot in here, so I'll only be going over the basic concept, but I'll leave a link in the description so you can read it for yourself. Dragonspan. High concept. You are a dragon defending his territory by smashing, incinerating, and eating everything in your path. Game style: third-person shooter/smasher. Heavy on the smashing. Gameplay: as a dragon, the player flies through his world defending and expanding his territory by use of his brute physical strength and fearsome breath weapons. With these, the player has the ability to down trees, smash buildings, and pound the landscape. In addition to physical attacks, the player can use a more refined form of attack via magic. Spells such as Charm, Heal, Berserk will help in the further conquest of his foes. Various playfields, or eras, would have a different dynamic driving gameplay. Examples would be a forced scroll or reactor type round, or the focus of play could be derived from the classics like Breakout or Defender. As the game progresses, your dragon would grow in terms of size and abilities. Environment: the game takes place during epic times in an Earth's past, present, and future where magic and myths rule. The history of this world follows the familiar path of our own, but with far more fanciful and deadly flair. Mythological creatures abound, there's a lost world at the center of the Earth, majestic cities float amongst the clouds with Da Vinci-esque machines flying between them, and much, much more. The premise: one of many potential stories. The Circle of Dragons is an ethereal council that oversees the evolution of both man and dragon. They have two goals. The first is to protect humans from all forms of evil or catastrophe as they evolve into a more sophisticated race. Their second goal is to ensure that all dragons reach the next plane of existence: immortality. The council appears in your dreams and provides you with tasks and guidance over a many-century-long trial period. There are other dragons scattered around the globe, but because they cannot venture far beyond their lairs, gatherings are rare except during mating seasons. The goal: again, one of many potential goals: to complete all of your quests, save humanity, and become immortal, joining the circle. Now, I don't know about you guys, but reading this gave me major Dragon Rage vibes. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm the only person who remembers that game. But yeah, pretty different, huh? Imagine a huge, more realistic-looking Spyro terrorizing villages and blasting his way through armies of Norks. Speaking of which, before we had the cute and recognizable design by Charles Zambilis, we had these concepts by Stitt, for both a young and adult Spyro. But that's not all. We also have some early Cyclopean Nork designs and environment concept art, two of which depict the Beastmaster's Swamp, which likely became the Beastmaker's homeworld, and an area labeled Aquatic that bears a resemblance to Lost Fleet, but could have been the original idea for the Aquafire's world. Hey guys, it's Miharu. When it comes to the original Spyro trilogy, the first game is definitely the most unsettling in terms of atmosphere. Without any NPCs to guide you on your journey, besides the dragons who don't even bother to stick around, you feel alone, and in the presence of so many things that want you dead, perhaps quite helpless and afraid. Toasty, high caves, haunted towers. Chances are at least one level in this game made you feel uneasy as a kid, and maybe even now. But there's one that stands above the rest. One that is almost unanimously agreed upon as being the most terrifying level across all three games, and I will be breaking down what makes it so. This is why Misty Bog is the scariest Spyro level. Let's start by taking a look at the homeworld this level resides in. The Beastmaker's world is, for most people, the turning point of the entire game. Up until now, everything had been, for the most part, lighthearted and whimsical. Then suddenly you arrive in this giant swamp with a creepy dark skybox and green ooze everywhere you look, not to mention electronorks and boars waiting to give you a shock at every turn. I should also mention Beastmakers is home to Treetops, an infamous level with very tricky supercharges that cost many players a lot of lives. But it doesn't compare to the broken palace itself, Misty Bog. Now the funny thing is, when you land in this level, it's not immediately apparent you're gonna have a bad time. Sure, there's a Nork behind you attempting to trap a chicken in a cage, and the thick fog makes it near impossible to see what lies ahead, but hey, at least it's not pitch black. In fact, in Reignited, it's downright sunny out, and the music is actually pretty upbeat. What could go wrong? Then you glide over to the other side, go up the steps, and you see them clearly. The plants. At first, they don't seem all that strange, but the closer you get, they start to shake, until suddenly they rush towards you with great speed, their sharp-toothed mouths open wide and ready to chew you up and spit you out. As a kid, these were the enemies that gave me the most trouble. Well, them and the devil dogs from Dark Passage. Their attacks require fast reflexes to counter, which I did not have. Plus, the way they look, in both versions, is pretty nightmare-inducing. But it doesn't stop there. Over on the next island, you'll see some blue amphibian creatures hopping about. These are attack frogs, so named because once you get within range, their long tongues will come lashing out at you so quick you won't even know what hit you. And just up ahead, more dragon-eating plants. Now mind you, this is still the beginning section of the level, and you've already fought through over 10 enemies. It's kind of ridiculous the amount of enemies you encounter in this area alone, even when compared to some of the later levels, and that's all because of how they're spaced out, which is to say, not very well. Look at this, a whole row of them. Granted, these guys are pretty easy to take care of, at least in the original. Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason in Reignited, these Nork dudes, as they're called, will actively run towards you and attempt to stab you. And like, it's an actual forceful stabbing motion, not just a quick slash. It's scary. Then after you're done fending them off, you're presented with a choice. Keep going forward and drop down this half a tree trunk, or go to the left. Should you choose the latter, you'll hop across some stumps and eventually come to a cave with 3 frogs guarding the entrance. This is the notorious Frog Cave, one of the most difficult areas of the game. Inside you'll find 4 Nork dudes and 6 attack frogs. The challenge here lies in the fact that this is a mix of long-range enemies better dealt with by flame, and short-range enemies wearing armor, all placed very close together. Many players, both old and new, will agree that it's very tough to get through this part without taking damage, even if you're careful. After freeing the next dragon, you then loop back around and can continue on down the tree trunk mentioned earlier. Luckily, this is the last pair of plants you'll encounter, but you still got Nork dudes, attack frogs, and even boars to worry about. Though the latter will do some of the work for you if you stand still. And once you're done clearing them out, you're home free, or so you thought. You may notice at this point you have some gems missing. Well, all you need to do is glide over to this structure over here, climb up the steps, jump across some more stumps, and oh god damn it. Are you starting to understand what I mean when I say this is the scariest level? Maybe I need to elaborate more. While the overall atmosphere, except for the fog, probably wouldn't be considered creepy in the typical sense, with most people saying the only things that really scared them were the plants, what makes it truly frightening is just how overwhelming it all is. With groups and rows of enemies at every turn, you're in constant danger. Never a moment's rest, not even at the very end. Misty Bog keeps you on your toes from start to finish, and it's a shining example of the spooky situations Spyro 1 puts you through. Hey guys, it's Miharu. With the release of the Spyro Reignited trilogy in 2018, we in turn saw a lot more merchandise being produced. Keychains, statues, mugs. There's more than you may think, but have you ever wanted a burnt sheep-scented candle, or Elora as a rubber duck? Then you've come to the right place. We're talking about the weirdest and most interesting Spyro merch. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Crazy Kariana aka Kari for helping me with this video. She's a fantastic cosplayer and owns an impressive Spyro collection, so please go check out her Twitter and Tumblr. Though pretty hard to find nowadays, the Purple Dragon did have a number of official products back in his early days and through the late 2000s. What I'm going to be discussing is all retro and quite obscure, with only a few people actually owning them or even knowing they exist. I've talked about the history of Spyro fast food promotions before, but now it's time to go beyond Happy Meal toys. The first is this promo shirt from 1998. Nothing too strange, it's just a plain white tee with the render from the Spyro 1 box art. We've all seen this before, but did you ever wonder what the back view of this pose looked like? Well, if you turn the shirt around, that's exactly what you get. Up until a few months ago, this image had never been posted online before, and it's almost surreal to see, like witnessing a historical event from a different angle. Next is this pinball machine from 2001. I should mention that some of the images used in this video were taken from Ajika's Spyro collection, and there's a ton I won't be going over, so I'll leave a link in the description below. I think my favorite thing about this early 2000s stuff is the weird art that was used. It has this knockoff quality about it that's also really charming. Even the logo is something that was only used during this era. Let's take a moment to talk about Spyro in Japan. While not as popular as Crash, a few of his games did manage to get official releases, those being the first two, Season of Ice and Spyro Orange. And just like with Crash, for the PlayStation games, he was also given a cuter, more rounded design, probably to look more appealing. This appearance here is what would be used for the manga. Yes, Spyro had a manga as well, known as Tondemo Adventure Spyro-kun. I couldn't really tell you what's going on in it, so I'll just show you some images out of context. Elora fans are sure to appreciate this one. Then, taking another look at the GBA designs, they went full anime and I love it. It really is a unique take on the character, and this promo strap, courtesy of Rad Spyro, is the only known piece of merch depicting this particular look. Did you know game journalists were given lighters as a way to promote the first game back in 1998? Yeah, cigarette lighters, as a promotional item for an E-rated game. Cigarettes not fancy enough for you? We'll have out cigar matches. Come on down to BB King's Blues Club and feel the burn, kids. Here we have a bonk and go to horny jail inflatable hammer. I've got nothing on this one, no idea who it was made by or why, but there's that fun cartoony artwork again. That's about it. CD Bubblegum. Yes, before there was Bubble Breath, there was Bubble Gum Breath. These were made by Coco's Confectionery and Novelty in, I assume, the early 2000s, and apparently weren't popular with anyone besides fans of Spyro and Christina Aguilera. Alright, here's what you've all been waiting for. It's time for plushies. Starting with holiday Spyros. Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, there's a Spyro for almost every occasion. These are definitely more cute than weird, but they are quite funny, as is this. You know, I always wanted a toy that was a cross between Spyro and Slinky from Toy Story, except apply the spring to his neck only. These are Spyro's Slinky Pets, made by Namco, and they came in two variations, purple and yellow. They're incredibly silly, and all I can think about is Spyro's giraffe neck from the old Raid United footage. And now, I've saved the best for last, the piece of merch that started this whole video in the first place. I present to you Shark Spyro. You thought the original fake Crash plushie was scary? This thing looks like it's going to hunt me down and murder me in a perfectly lit dark alley. Look at this! He looks like the Yeti from Rudolph. This thing is so bizarre that Daoman himself even has a recreation of it, which can be seen in his streams.
Hey guys, it's Miharu. Well, it's that time again where I start taking suggestions for videos, which you can do over on my Discord, link in the description below, as I wait for literally any bit of Spyro news to drop. Today's topic was suggested by Colin, and one that I've been meaning to get to for a while. By now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Egg Challenge from Spyro 3's Icy Peak, in which you must protect Nancy, the ice-skating polar bear, from hockey player Rhinox, who want to sabotage her big performance. But what you may not know is that this particular challenge may very well be based on a real-life event from almost 30 years ago. On January 6, 1994, American figure skater Nancy Kerrigan was struck on the leg with a telescopic baton by an assailant intending to prevent her from taking part in the figure skating championships and Winter Olympics. The attack was orchestrated by associates of rival skater Tonya Harding in an attempt to eliminate the competition. And though it did force Kerrigan to withdraw from the championships, she was luckily able to recover in time for the Olympics. This event would go on to become widely recognized in popular culture, spawning a film, and even being referenced in an episode of Futurama. Let's take a closer look at the mission from the game. The polar bear's name? Nancy. There's your obvious connection if there was nothing else. If you fail to protect her from a Rhinoc, she will get smacked, rather brutally I might add, and the performance will end. However, she'll get right back on her feet if you wish to try again. Now of course, the weapon in this case is a hockey stick instead of a baton, as the Rhinocs are hockey players in keeping with the icy theme of the level. Overall, not a whole lot to go on. You've got the name of the skater, someone sending goons to assault that skater, and that's about it in terms of similarities. Now, it's very possible that this could be a mere coincidence, as nothing has been outright confirmed by Insomniac, but it's interesting to think that a real-world incident could have inspired one of Spyro's egg challenges of all things. So, here's the thing. You forgot about Spyro 3, and so did I. Hey guys, it's Miharu. So what's all this nonsense about people forgetting Spyro 3? It's a classic, my favorite game of all time personally, and it even introduced a character I talk about extensively on this channel. I'd say it's pretty well remembered, for better or for worse. But why is it that nobody can remember the plot? Even I, in the years before I rebranded my channel and became intimately familiar with these games, realized I was unaware of the sorceress's ultimate plan and what she wanted the baby dragons for. Sure, I know now it's because she needed their wings for an immortality spell, but I remember half joking with my friend about the reason being that she couldn't fly, and half of me was serious. So why is this? Well, honestly, I think one of the bigger reasons might be that Year of the Dragon pushed a little too much story on the player. Not that it was complex, or even that it's a problem. In fact, it's one of the things I enjoy most about the game, as I'm sure many others do. But Spyro had always been largely focused on its gameplay, with story being more or less an afterthought. So by giving us actual plot in place of what we would normally make up theories about, I think it kind of confused us, to the point where some of us would rather forget that in favor of coming up with our own headcanons. But there are other things that factor into this as well. Take the sorceress herself, for instance. While I wouldn't call her a forgettable villain by any means, there are aspects of her character that don't seem to stick with us as much as the previous two. Why is it that so many people are quick to assume Ripto died after he fell in lava, when the same thing happened to the sorceress and she got right back out? If she can survive one dip, then so can he. Though I see how one could easily forget she had a second boss fight. Not only is it as much of a joke as Cortex's fight from Crash 2, but if you were like me and grew up with a Black Label version of Spyro 3, there's a chance you didn't even know it existed. If you don't already know, these first editions of the game had some issues when compared to the later releases, like Greatest Hits. Recycled music, a missing cutscene before Spike's boss fight, and the infamous Speedway egg glitch. So if you left a Speedway before completing one of the challenges, and then came back later, you would be locked out of acquiring the egg from that challenge. And the missing cutscene in question, Spike is Born, has a line of dialogue about what will happen to the sorceress if the magic isn't fully restored to their world.
Without the dragons, the magic in this world will wither away. Without magic, I'll die, and so will your ever-so-slim chance of becoming a sorceress!
Dragon magic sustains her, but she will die without it. That's a pretty important thing to know in regards to the story, and though you could probably assume as much from context clues, it could easily go over one's head, especially if you were a kid who had trouble paying attention. When you think about it, so little of this story actually involves Spyro himself. Sure, he's the one rescuing the eggs, but according to Purple Nestor over here, the only reason for that is because no other dragon can fit down the hole. So at this point, he just exists as their errand boy. But it's funny how the theme of Forgotten applies everywhere in this game, from the setting literally being the Forgotten Worlds, to the quest to bring back magic that has long since been lost, and even the villain's plot. And that's just fascinating to me. Enter the Dragonfly, the game that started the decline of the Spyro franchise, and widely regarded by fans as the worst in the series. But how did it earn such a reputation? As you may already know, the game was plagued by a variety of issues. Discarded ideas, questionable decisions, and an overall toxic workplace environment, not to mention an insane amount of bugs and glitches, resulted in a disappointing and unfinished product. People have also criticized its short length and general lack of content. However, despite its flaws, it does have a dedicated fanbase and holds nostalgic value for some players. Even I, while agreeing it's not a good game, have come to appreciate what it brought to the Spyro series. So the question is, should it be remade? Well, that's honestly quite tough to answer. Many would say yes, as it would be a great opportunity to address the technical issues and realize the full potential of the game's ideas. But on the other hand, the case against it also makes sense, because here's the thing, if we're asking it to be remade without any major changes, then it is pointless. Obviously, it was a rushed and broken mess with a forgettable plot, poor level design, and repetitive missions. A simple graphical and technical cleanup aren't gonna do much good. The only way this could possibly be done is by giving every aspect a complete overhaul, as well as adding all the cut content. And at that point, it might as well be a different game entirely. For those wanting a remake of Crash Twinsanity, the same logic applies. If the game were to be remade as is, here are the main problems that need to be addressed. 1. The glitches. Need I say more? The game being playable is top priority, one would think. 2. Spyro's moveset. Give us more uses for Bubble Breath and the Wing Shield to enhance combat and platforming challenges. 3. The scope and scale. Expand the world and add more levels while at the same time condensing the objectives for each and making sure there's a clear direction for what the player should be doing. And 4, the storytelling and boss battles. Why and how is Ripto back? Why did he bring Crush and Gulp if we never fight them? We need more explanation and cutscenes to break up the gameplay. Overall, it just needs more polish. Now, taking from that, let's focus on what could be salvaged and recycled into a brand new game. First, the story. While I personally do not want Ripto to return, taking the Spyro 3 epilogue scenario of him and Nasty Nork working together, which at one point was going to be the case for ETD, would be the safest choice for the plot. As for what their plan would be is anyone's guess, but it would probably be best to leave dragonflies out of it. Multiple breaths. If there's one thing that ETD did right, and one thing that absolutely needs to be included in Spyro 4, it's this. But it can be improved. Maybe instead of Bubble Breath, it can be replaced with Earth from the Legend series, or even better, the Plasma Bomb from Ripto's boss fight. Even if it's just a temporary power-up, I would love to see that one make a comeback. Spyro's moveset can also be expanded in general, with power-ups specific to his wings or horns, and levels could incorporate puzzles to make better use of these abilities. A day-night cycle. This is something that was planned for ETD but never made it in, and I really want to see it utilized. Up until this point, each level and homeworld have had a set time of day, which is fine, as it gives each their own unique feeling. But having a cycle would make the worlds feel more alive and connected to one another. I'll always stand by Enter the Dragonfly having strong ideas but a weak execution. If you want a full rundown on the problems it faced during development, I highly suggest Mr. FO1's documentary or my 20th anniversary retrospective. I have no doubt that we will be getting Spyro 4 soon, and that it will be its own thing. As this comment from Packlander states, Enter the Dragonfly's very name is poison. A new version would fall flat and scare developers away from making a new entry. And that is very true. For many fans, and even those who worked on the game, seeing that title can do nothing but resurface bad memories and negative associations. And a remake can't do much to fix a permanent scar like that.
Hey guys, it's Miharu. Should we get a Spyro movie? For well over a decade, this question has lingered in the minds of Spyro fans everywhere. Looking over the history of attempts to bring the Purple Dragon to the big screen, it was a mix of hope and disappointment. The Legend of Spyro 3D, the only official planned film, left us with just one teaser poster and a leaked script draft as remnants of what could have been. And when fan projects like Legacy of Ages and Project Frixion also failed to come to fruition, it just added to that longing for a proper cinematic experience. So many would answer that question with a definitive yes, as it seems long overdue at this point.
In the current landscape where video game movies are gaining traction with successes like Sonic and Mario, the timing seems ripe for Spyro to spread his wings onto the silver screen. But of course, the new dilemma now lies in deciding which path to take in terms of continuity. Should a movie follow the more story-driven Legend series, or stick with the nostalgic charm of the original trilogy? After all, now that the quote-unquote real Spyro is back in the spotlight with reignited and promises of a new game just around the corner, it seems only natural that would be the direction it would take. But there is a middle ground to explore as well. A balance between the epic storytelling of Legend and the whimsical characters and lighthearted tone of the classics could offer a unique take on the Spyro universe that appeals to both old and new audiences alike. Maybe something like A Hero's Tale, or maybe even Shadow Legacy, although executed much better in the latter's case, and not just name-dropping classic locations for the sake of nostalgia. Some people have even tossed around the idea of a Netflix series or a similar episodic format, suggesting that perhaps Spyro's PS1 adventures are better suited for a longer narrative arc rather than a standalone movie. So what's my stance on all of this? I honestly couldn't care less. Yeah, I know, may seem like a weird thing to say, but I've just never been one to demand movies or even series out of video games. Don't get me wrong, if it were to happen, I'd be excited and want to watch it, but as it stands, I don't really see the need for one. Maybe I just can't help but think of everything that might go horribly wrong. Yeah, still salty about Tak all these years later, but to me that's a prime example of how not to make a game into a cartoon. But enough about whether or not it should happen. Now the question we must ask is, could it happen? Well, I'm not so sure. Unlike Crash Bandicoot, who always seems to get top billing and was confirmed to have a now-cancelled cartoon in the works, a Spyro movie or series is not only less likely, but also just isn't a priority at the moment. Right now, what matters most to fans is getting that next game, and all the uncertainty surrounding that is already cause for concern. We have absolutely no idea what the future holds for this franchise, which makes it rather difficult to look ahead and speculate about what we might see outside the realm of video games. All we know is the next necessary step is a Spyro 4, something to prove that the fanbase is still going strong and the desire to see more persists. But whether it's in film form or not, one thing's for certain, the potential is there, and we all eagerly await the next chapter in the Dragon's legacy.